Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Make Your Mark podcast. And oh boy, do I have an awesome guest for you today. Now, his name is Barron Damon. He's a strategic leader in the non-profit sector with 20 plus years of experience. He's also an author and hosts a podcast on philanthropy and has been featured in several magazines, as well as, get this, guys, he's been special guest on TV, radio shows, and podcasts discussing topics related to philanthropy, youth development, business, and travel. Like, he has done so much. And I don't want to give too much away right now because we're going to have a conversation, a discussion as to what he actually does, what results he gets, and where this all began. And so please welcome to the show, Barron. Oh my goodness, Barron. I am super excited for you to be here.
What's up, Kay? I'm so excited about being here today. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to a great conversation, and you're one of my favorites, so we're gonna have a good time.
Definitely. Oh my goodness, you're one of my favorites too. Right, but don't tell anyone.
I
Right.
won't. Between me and you, that's between me and you.
Oh my goodness. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of your business and the amazing results you bring to your clients, I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about when it all began, because I'm sure it didn't just happen in the snap of a finger, or you woke up one day having a successful business, right? There was a journey behind this. What did that look
Yeah.
like?
It's always interesting to share the journey
Mm,
because it makes me reflect and also appreciate, right, where you come from.
mhm.
My journey probably started on the college campus. My second semester as a freshman in college, I actually got mugged. Okay.
What?
I was headed back to my dorm, and these guys mugged my cousin and I. It was just a random act of violence. And I found out later on that these same young men were going around the different colleges and randomly hurting people. I happened to be in the wrong place. Now I say at the right time.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that's where my journey began. And my life actually, it got complicated after that. And it was very uncomplicated before that. I was an athlete, I was a scholar because I got a scholarship to attend the University of South Carolina. Things were going swimmingly well. And then, bam, out of nowhere, I got hit in the eye. And my life really, what I call a defining moment in my life. And
Mm.
it really changed my life. And I ended up feeling very ashamed and embarrassed. I was hurt. I was emotionally kind of scarred from the experience. I remember going home and staying home for a couple of weeks. I was a first generational college student. So my parents didn't share with me, you should withdraw from school and then just go back the next semester. So I went back to took the exams. I failed everything. I just couldn't get myself together, and I was later suspended from school indefinitely
What, because of your grades?
because of my grades. Now, the little piece of information, my first semester, I just had a really good time. So my grades weren't good.
Okay.
So you add that second semester, and then that third semester, and by then I just never could recover in terms of being emotionally able to handle it. Because every time I would walk around campus, I would think about there's somebody's going to hurt me. And
Oh.
it just didn't. And then my life kind of spiraled out of control, got into some trouble, got connected with some bad people. And it was difficult. It was a real difficult time. And I ended up slowly but surely trying to get my life together. And I had this internship. And this internship kind of got me back on the right track. And it was called Stop the Violence. What's the irony in that, right? Stop the violence. And I
Right.
remember this particular program helping young people who was, just had some really difficult times and challenging times in their life. And I knew in that moment I didn't want anything to do with that. That was not my goal, my desire at all to work with children. Matter of fact, I'm a third generational entrepreneur. So all I could think about was I want to have a big house, a big car, and have this nice corner office. I can overlook the city, that was my dream. That was my goal. It
Right.
definitely include working with kids who was prone to violence.
Okay, so why didn't you just quit then if you're like, oh no, this is not what I'm looking to do? Why didn't you just quit?
Well, it was a summer internship, so it ended. And I was
Oh,
like, great, this is awesome. Now I can kind of move on, get my life together and all of this stuff. And it didn't happen that way. I felt this kind of calling to get into this profession,
mm.
with the nonprofit. And so I ended up applying for a job at an organization called Big Brothers Big Sisters. And that's
Oh
the
yeah.
only job I applied for. And it's a national, international youth organization.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so was that something you were looking to do, or you just thought this is what I want to do now? Like, how did all these transitions come about?
Well, I wasn't a person that really gave back, so to speak. I wasn't philanthropic. I mean, I was
Mm,
very pretty selfish, actually. Matter of fact, I didn't understand why would something be called a nonprofit. That didn't make sense to me.
mm,
You know,
right.
business, you're supposed to make money. That's how I
Right.
always thought about it. But I did feel this calling by God. I would say it was God kind of calling me to this particular area that I really didn't want to have anything to do with, but it was the best decision that I ever made, and it really kind of took my trajectory in a whole different place.
Wow, wow. So this journey really began when you was young. So how did you come about realizing or understanding, okay, what kind of business you want to build and the fact that you actually want to build a business?
Yeah, business was always on my mind. I saw my grandfather do business, and I was with him a lot growing up. My uncle had a multi-million dollar business, and I spent time with him. And then my parents had a great business, so I was around it. And so I knew just a matter of time before I can parlay. But I also had this desire and this calling to work in this nonprofit space. And I
Mm,
remember the first time, Kay, I started making money, right? So I didn't get paid very much in the nonprofit. I was talking to this lady one time, and she was over a state office. And she said to me, she said, Barron, can you come and do training? And I said, sure. She said, how much would you charge? I said, $50. And she said, okay, I'll pay you $500. Now I was telling her $50 for the entire day, because I didn't realize that people actually pay you for training.
So she thought you meant an hour. She was like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So she paid me $500, and I mean my world just kind of opened up. I was like, wow. I come to do this training at the beach. They pay for everything, and they pay me $500 to do what I love to do, and that's train people. I was like, this is great.
Well, and how old were you at that point?
Huh?
How old were you at that point?
I was probably around 28 or so.
Oh my
29.
goodness. You
Yeah.
probably felt like you won the lottery.
I did. I felt like I was on the top of the world with my $500.
Oh my goodness, I love it. I love it. Now, so tell us a little bit about the business that you now have and how you help your clients.
Yeah, and even before that, there's this guy who came he did a presentation, and
Mm,
he was talking about, he was a wealthy guy, owned car dealerships, and me being in the nonprofit sector, I still wasn't making the money I desired. So I asked him after the presentation, I said, hey, look, I haven't been able to make money in nonprofit. And he said, why not? And it just kind of took me back. And that was it. That was his question. Why not? And I went home and I started thinking about why not? Why are you
mm,
not making the money you desire? And so that's when I started kind of creating this business model, right? That will allow me to still do what I was called to do and love, but also the business side of that as well. And so we created a business called the Business of Life Coaching and Consulting. And we started contracting with, a lot of different clients, and the $500 went up a little bit, right?
awesome.
So yeah, we started getting, major contracts, but I was still working full time, and I was able to do that on a kind of part-time basis. And in 2022, I transitioned into full-time business. But before I did, I started developing these multiple streams of income. And I think that was one of the big kind of turning points for me because I started consulting with Airbnb. Airbnb started paying me to help people create their own Airbnb. So I probably help over 1,000 people, still doing that to this day.
Wow.
We have another business called Survivor Friendly. We're a partner in that business. So we provide durable medical equipment to breast cancer survivors. And we have multiple locations for that. And then we have an event business that we do all kind of corporate and major events. And so you can see that we have multiple streams of income. And then I started this philanthropic coaching that kind of ties everything in.
I love it. Now, oh my goodness, with what you've just mentioned, I've got so many more questions to ask you around this, right?
Yeah.
Now, you learned about having different streams of income, several streams of income. Like, did you have coaches to teach you this? Did you have mentors? How did you even come to understand that you need to have several income streams in order to make the money that you want and you deserve?
I was thinking about this the other day. I probably have like 4 or 5 coaches now, you being one of them, right? I didn't have coaches and mentors that much. I would just read a lot and just try to duplicate what other people were doing. But I knew in order for me to transition full time, I needed to have multiple streams of income.
Right, right. I like that. And that's awesome. And the fact that you've done this at a young age is like puts you ahead of the curve so much further, right? This is great.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is you hear so many coaches saying, focus on one thing, focus on one thing, make sure you get that on point, before you move on to something else. Whereas you didn't do that. You were like, no, I'm going to do all of these things and I'm going to do it all together. So, how
Right.
did you stay focused and make sure that they all worked?
Well, the interesting thing, I recently took this, what it's called a Kobe report. I don't know if you've heard of the Kobe report, but
No.
it's one of the best assessments I've ever taken personally. A lot of people are familiar with Myers-Briggs and the Big Five and a lot of personality tests. This one focuses on your innate self, who you are. And I remember there were times when I tried to say, I'm just going to scale one thing, right? I'm just going to do that, do it great. Because that's what people said I needed to
Right.
do,
Yeah.
right? So that's typical. But I struggled with it because I always felt like I was leaving something behind. So I was doing the debriefing for the assessment, and the lady told me, she said, Do you do a lot of different stuff, don't you? She's, I can tell according to your report. I said, yes. And I said, you know what, Kathy? I really tried not to. She said, it's in you. That's who you are. I've had people look at my LinkedIn profile and they said, why are you doing all this stuff? I said, one, because I enjoy it and I have a capacity to do a lot. And everybody can't do that. And I understand that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a skill, it's a
Yeah.
talent, absolutely,
Yeah.
to be able to do that.
Yeah.
That's great. Now, the business that you have right now, I would love for you to share, what you actually do for your clients, who you work with, and
Yeah.
what kind of results do you get your clients?
I found this really sweet spot because my nonprofit work and I was also did a lot of grassroots philanthropic stuff and this philanthropic coaching. So I had a wealth advisor call me. I was vacationing in Portugal a couple of summers ago, and he reached out and he said, Barron, I can't find anybody that does philanthropic coaching. He just found it on my website. And he said, I want you to come and do a podcast. That was my very first podcast.
Ooh.
And so it was called Family Bonds. And he wanted me to talk about philanthropy in the family and how to get families engaged and involved. And I hadn't really done anything to that point. But of course, you know how we do it. We can figure it out, right? We figured it
Right.
out. We had a great podcast. And then he tells me, he said, Barron, I have my manager who's retiring. He would love to talk to you. And so he reached out to me and he said, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm cashing in my stock and I have about $4 to $7 million that I want to give away. And Michael said, you can help me. And I was like, oh, absolutely, I can help you. And it was kind of birthed from that. And so what we started doing was helping people create their mission. First, discover their philanthropic why. Why is it that you want to give back or give to charities or support? And we have to come up with that philanthropic why. For me, it was getting mugged. Before
Right.
then, I wasn't thinking about helping others, but
Yeah.
it was through that it happened. You know, even our breast cancer business, my wife had breast cancer 10 years ago, and
Mm,
that's a part of our philanthropic why. And we help people discover it. Sometimes they know it, sometimes they don't. And that's what that discovery process is about. And then we help them create their mission and their vision, just like they would do their business. We help them do it around their philanthropic giving, and then we put a plan together for them. So we work with advisors, wealth advisors, accountants, attorneys. That's a part of this team, this holistic approach that we use to help our clients.
right. Oh, I love that. Okay, so when you work with your clients, right, and they say, okay, they either want to create a nonprofit or they want to give money away, like, what is the process that you go through? And the reason I'm asking this is because I found it fascinating that you did like the personality test as to,
Mhm.
the reasoning as to how you work and why you work a certain way. Is
Yeah.
this something that you do for all of your clients to find out what their mission is? Because I'm sure you probably get people that are kind of like, I want to do something, but I'm not quite sure what.
Yeah, that's the number one. When we look at the research says there's two issues that potential donors have. One is they don't know about the issues they really care about, right? That's the number one issue. So we have what we call these issue cards, and we take them through a process, an interview process. It's pretty extensive, but it's also a fun process because we help them become more intentional and deliberate about thinking about their values and how they grew up, how they think about money and giving and all of that. And those are conversations they don't have every day. So it becomes a great opportunity and exercise for them to really kind of think about how they grew up. I call it who set the thermostat in your life, right? Around your giving. So when you think about a thermostat, somebody turned it on, right?
Mm,
It's up to us to go over and cut it down or cut it up based on the temperature that we want, right?
interesting.
Yeah. And so when our clients, when we work with them, we create that mission and the vision for them. We really empower them because we do all the research for them. So for example, Kay, if you had a nonprofit, and this is what Michael said, he said, Barron, there's so many nonprofits out there. How do I get started? And I
Right.
said, well, there's 1.5 million, which you mean you don't know how to get started. There's only 1.5 million out there, right? So we help people take that 1.5 million and narrow it down to 3 to 5 nonprofits. And we do all the research for them, but we're going back to them based on what their new mission around their giving is.
Wow. Okay. I love that. I love that. Now, for the purposes of our listeners, right? Because we have listeners that are all business owners at different
Yeah,
levels, and they're probably thinking, well, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to give away money? Like, I've built a business
yeah,
to make money so I can live the lifestyle that I want to live, right?
yeah.
So why is this important for business owners to really get involved and give back or even build a nonprofit?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a word, a term called social responsibility,
Yes.
right? We are supposed to be socially responsible because of the things that we've been given, right? And it's just a good practice. But we also know there's a tax component to it, right?
Oh,
People want to save money on taxes, and they want to give it away to somebody instead of paying Uncle Sam the 40% that he's claiming, right? So
right.
that's where kind of I come in too. You know, we want to help you develop this, like for me, this philanthropic why, but we also know what's driving that is your desire not to give that money to Uncle Sam.
Mm,
And so we want to make sure that people understand, especially businesses, because I've worked with businesses where we help that business um, in terms of employee development and growth and
Ah,
how they view the company. It's amazing because when the company is philanthropic, you start attracting a different kind of employee. And that employee engagement becomes even more profound. And this program that we created at one company, they had a waiting list of volunteers wanting to get in the program. And so, especially now, think about it, Kay, people are having a hard time bringing people back to work
yeah,
after the
right.
pandemic.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we've seen in companies that we work with is people start coming to work because they have this philanthropic side a program that the company has. They said, oh, you know what? I want to make sure I go that day so I can participate in this giving back kind of opportunity.
Interesting. Oh, I didn't know about that component. That's pretty cool. So you're not just working on the surface or with that individual or that business owner, you're actually spreading it out throughout their entire business and developing and helping their employees come along on this journey as well.
Absolutely. And that employee engagement is so important because it turns into my background, my degree. I went back to school after I got kicked out.
You did?
Yes, I went back to school. I got a degree in industrial psychology and a master's in business. And so that's the part of the story. My wife said, "Why you forget to tell that part?" Uh, so my psychology degree, the industrial psychology, is part of how people are engaged at work. And I love, as a coach, figuring out what's going on at work. Why are you having problems? What could make you more satisfied doing the work that you do? And one of the things that we found out that volunteerism, giving back, philanthropy brings that kind of satisfaction that sometimes they don't get from the job itself, which
Right.
is a very interesting dynamic.
Okay, that is very interesting. Now, because you work with a lot of business owners, at
Mhm.
what point do you think will be best for a business owner to start bringing or implementing this into their business? Because there's probably people thinking, I've just started this. I need to make money first before I do
Right.
this, right? So,
Yeah.
what would be the good point, or at what stage would be a good point for them to
Yeah.
start?
That's a great question. That really is a good question because people, when you think about it, and people have the mentality, I need to get to a certain level first.
Mm.
But Kay, let me ask you a question. When you think about companies who have these philanthropic components, for example, if somebody say, we're partnering with a nonprofit and you can give to that nonprofit, right? Through us, through the company. We have a tendency of doing that. If you have company A, B, and C, they all do the same thing. But if they're attached to this charity, you
Mm,
will give the money to them, right?
right, right.
That's just naturally what we do most of the time. So when you think about these businesses, you can be at the very beginning level because people will say, "Oh, wow, you're just starting out your business, but you're still trying to be philanthropic. You still, have a little mentoring component that you created, or you're giving back to a food bank or something."
Mm.
And it really helps develop the culture from a small company perspective, but it also shows other people. I've brought in media. I mean, like for events that I've done with companies, and the media comes in and it pumps that company up. We give them recognition that they wouldn't have gotten for their own business, right?
Right.
And that goes a long way when you're in the 6 o'clock news and showing how wonderful your company is. So you can start out right where you are, but usually that medium-sized business is a really good place to start. I would say, around 50 to 100 employees is kind of the sweet spot, but anything from the 5,000 employees to even 5 employees, you can do it.
Oh, I love that. Okay, now you've been doing this for a long time, right? And
Yes.
worked with many, many different clients. I'm assuming you can do this no matter where you are in the globe. Is that correct?
Yes, matter of fact, I was just talking to a potential client. He's in Australia, and I was
Oh,
talking to him about philanthropy. He said, "Barron, I never thought about it from a business perspective."
right.
And he said, "My company," and it's interesting because his company is growing. He's trying to scale it to $100 million, but he said we're having some problems because they can't even fulfill all the orders. It's a good problem to
Oh,
have, right?
yes, it is.
It's a great problem to have, but now he's starting to get some bad reviews
Oh
because
no.
he can't fulfill the orders. So I said, a good PR plan during philanthropy can help. And he was like, oh, yeah, can I talk about? So we've been having conversations how we can help his business kind of, I'm not a PR specialist, but I know philanthropy and how we can help a company's image as well.
Absolutely. Oh, I like that little twist. That is
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Oh, okay. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world. But I guess what are the first things that you should be thinking about? I guess if you're thinking I want to do this, right? I want to be associated with a non-profit. And
yeah,
I know there's so many listeners here that they're just givers. They want to give, 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 give,
yeah,
give right from the get-go, right?
yeah.
But what are some of the mistakes that a lot of people are making and that you've seen that maybe we should know about or even learn about or even prevent it?
Yeah, there's a lot of, I just wrote an article that's being published and it says why we should trust nonprofits unless you've been catfished, right? We know the term catfish, right? And what
Yeah.
that means. And sometimes nonprofits, for the most part, are very trustworthy. You have a few bad apples out there, just like all organizations. So it's really important to do the research. And that's part of what our company does. We do the research for you, but there's so much information online
Yeah.
and you can go out. Matter of fact, I do have a PDF that we can provide to your listeners as well that kind of give you a step-by-step process and what some things to look out for when you're trying to engage with nonprofits.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, yeah, when you said catfish, I'm like, okay, that's scary.
Yeah,
Scary
yeah.
that's going on, and the fact that there's probably been loads of people that's fallen for that and
Oh,
giving away
yeah.
their money and totally being, shafted from that. That is a scary
Yeah.
thing, and this is why we need you, Baron.
That's right. And I'm here for you. I'm
Yes.
here for it.
And the thing is,
Because especially during the holidays, that
yeah.
happens a lot.
Oh,
Elderly people get scammed. You get all these
mm,
phone calls and people sound really good. I because I do the research, I can look at an organization and tell right off the bat if they're legit or not. And we have different sources that we look at to do, that can find out all the information about nonprofits.
okay, I love that because first thing that came to my mind was like, oh my God, research. I haven't got time to do the research. Where
Right.
would I even start? Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that is a job in itself. So you save people time, right?
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely. Absolutely. We save them time. We have researchers that's a part of our team, and
hmm,
that's what they do. We look at their 990s, their financials. We look at their executive team. We actually connect them to the executives. We show them how they can volunteer, whether it's on a board or directors or just volunteering. We look at their social media. We look at all the events that they have. All of those things, we put this donor report together, and it's fantastic because it's just a link, right? And you can find out everything that about that nonprofit that we've done the research on, and it saves you time and energy and even money because you don't want to make the wrong mistake and donate $50,000 to an organization and they're out of business 6 months later
oh
because you just
no.
know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness. And so I got another question for you, right? Out of
Mhm.
interest now. And I guess I'm going to be a little bit selfish because now I'm thinking about the non-profit that I want to be
Yeah.
part of, right? Like you've got my mind thinking about this now.
Mhm.
Um, does a non-profit have to be in the same country that you're in?
That's a good question. Does the nonprofit have to be in the same country that you're in?
Hmm.
Hmm. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Yeah, because so a lot of times there's nonprofit organizations in one country, but they have an international reach, right?
Huh.
So, for
Right.
example, the organization I work for, Big Brothers Big Sisters, they're located in a specific state in the States, but they're in Australia. They're in India. They're all over the world. Yeah.
Okay. So generally, nonprofits will be international.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Now, if you've got my mind going now, right? I know you've probably got a lot of the listeners' mind thinking, huh, this is interesting. So if they want to connect with you to learn more about this, where can they go?
They can go to barrondamon.com. That's the number one place to go. Or you can connect with me on LinkedIn at Barron Damon, but Barron Damon, Damon.com. I do have two first names, so people always call me Damon Barron. It's perfectly fine. I get it. But .com, barrondamon.com is the best way to find me or on LinkedIn, and I would love to connect with you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Now, a little bird also tells me that you have a free gift.
Yes, I do have a free gift. Yeah.
Yes, and the free gift, guys, will the links, everything that Baron has mentioned will be in the show notes. Can you tell us a little bit about this free gift and how it will get people started?
Yeah, this free gift is it's wonderful because it allows you to kind of think through this process without having someone kind of hovering over you, right? It lets you kind of think through it, and it will really kind of encourage you to start the process, and that's what we want, right? We have people, we do in-person presentations, and we say, I want you to think about death. And people are like, oh, that's horrible. We don't want to think about death, but I want you to think about death for a minute so you can think about life. One of the things that we talk about a lot is how do we live our legacy now? We don't want to wait to after you die. Okay, you're a young person, but you can start working on your legacy right now.
Right.
And that's why we say live your legacy. So this free document really talks about how you get started right now and start living the legacy that you really want to have.
I love that. I love that because we're not just building an empire, we are building a legacy as well,
That's
right?
exactly right.
That is super cool. Now, before we come to an end, there's been so many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. I feel like I can speak to you all day long about this, right? This is super cool. Do you have any last words to say for our audience today?
I would just say, start where you are. It's important. I was looking at some research that was very interesting, and I'm starting to do more research on the benefits of giving to our overall health, our
Mm,
mental health. We live in a very stressful world. And one thing about giving, it helps the dopamines in your mind, and it helps you to be happy. Think about if you've ever volunteered somewhere before, right? Or you gave, it's just something that feels good. And so I encourage people not to wait to get started where you are, we started with $5,000. We put $5,000 in a donor advised fund. That's a vehicle that we didn't get to talk about that, but that's a vehicle that we use to give money away. And you can set those up. We show you how to set those up. You don't have to start a nonprofit yourself. You can just put money in a donor advised fund and they do all the back office stuff. And so you just select the charities that you want to work with through that donor advised fund.
okay,
Uh,
now you brought it up. We got to talk about it.
we got to talk about it. Okay, let's talk about it.
So, what is this and what does it mean? So, you don't have to have a nonprofit. This is like the first step to going down that road. Is that right?
Right. So what we did was my wife got a bonus at work, and we said, you know what? We're going to commit this $5,000 and we're going to open a donor advised fund. Now, donor advised funds, you can get them at, all like community foundations or like Fidelity Charitable or Swartz, any of those kind of big places, you can start a donor advised fund. The great thing about it is they do all the back office stuff. You don't have to do any of that, keep up with your taxes. At the end of the year, they'll send you information. All you basically go on and you select the nonprofit that you want to work with. Of course, you want to hire me to do the research for
Right.
you, but they do at least a background enough to know that it's a legit organization. So if they're on that site, that means they're legitimate. They have a 501c3 tax. They have a tax ID, and that's what you want to make sure first of all. But the Donor Advised Fund allows you the flexibility, but it's also a fund that grows and you can continue to put money into it. So it's a interest-bearing account. So if you put $5,000 in it, it could be 5,200 in 3 months, right? So you have more money, just like any investment account. I love donor advised funds. We ended up starting our own foundation because we wanted to provide scholarships to young people and grants and missions work that we do in all over the world. But the Donor Advised Fund is a great place to start for potential donors.
I love it. Now, is there a minimum? You spoke about putting $5,000 in, but what if you only got a couple of hundred?
If you want to go a couple of hundred, you can't start a donor advised fund because usually they start around five. Some places it's 25,000 to get started or 10,000. So we selected five because that organization, because we had 5,000, we wanted to put to it. And this was some years ago, but I think that's a great place to start. But if you want to start with $200, we gave a scholarship to a young man for $500. Okay, that absolutely changed his life. He never thought he could get a scholarship because he was undocumented and he had great grades. We gave him the scholarship. He just poured down crying. I mean, right in front. We had the big check and all of that, and he
Oh,
just started crying. And we were like, whoa, but it just really touched him. So he came back and said, thank you for believing in me. He ended up getting an $80,000 scholarship to Tufts University for 4 years. And do the math on that. It's $320,000 worth of scholarships. But it was our one $500 scholarship that made him feel like he can get other scholarships.
wow, that is super cool. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It not only makes you feel good, it makes a difference to other people. You're making the world a better place. You're
Yes,
giving people a chance, but it also makes you, as a business owner, and your business stand out
that's right.
compared to your competitors.
That's right. That's a great point.
Mm.
Because your competitor may not, we want all the competitors to do it, right? Just from my standpoint. But we also want to stand out at business because we know how important that is. And this is one way that could help you stand out, make you feel good. And it could be a part of your mission for your organization, because that's what we do when we first start working with companies. We look at their current mission, their vision, and we align their values with their current mission and vision.
I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. See, guys, it doesn't matter how much it is you got. You don't need to have tens of thousands, right? You can get started with a small amount. And if you're not too sure how, you need to get in contact with Barron. He'll be able to direct you on how you can go about this and get started as soon as possible, because this is going to move mountains for your business. It's going to be absolutely insane, and you're giving back. Why wouldn't you want to do it, right? You're
Why
killing
wouldn't you?
with one stone. Right? It's awesome. So, Barron, one more time, people want to connect with you, learn more, get started. Where can they go?
They can go to barrondamon.com or go to LinkedIn, Barron Damon. You will find me. If you want to email, if you want the traditional people, you want to reach me, is barron@businessoflifecc.com. You can find me there as well. But I'm on all the socials, Facebook and Instagram and everywhere in between.
Brilliant, brilliant. And guys, if you missed any of those links or Barron's email, they will all be in the show notes. Be sure to scroll down, catch them in the show notes, and do contact him ASAP. You will not regret it, and he's an absolute awesome guy, and I'm sure you will agree with that. Barron, thank you so much for coming onto the show. Like I said, so many golden nuggets in such a short amount of time. Wow.
Thank you. Kay, thank you for having me. I enjoyed the conversation. I knew I would because you're awesome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. And thank you for coming on the show. Oh my goodness. This is awesome. Thanks for listening to Make Your Mark podcast at www.makeyourmarkpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.